What if I told you the wars you've been taught about, the heroes, the villains, the flags, the enemies, were never really about what you think? What if the battlefield was never the point? What if the real war was always being fought somewhere else? Because once you see the pattern, you don't just question one war, you start questioning all of them. The official story. We're told wars are simple. One nation does something wrong, another nation responds, good versus evil, freedom versus tyranny, defense versus aggression. It's always framed like a moral story, a clean narrative. You're told, we had no choice, we were attacked, we're protecting freedom. And every time, the same emotional levers get pulled. Fear, patriotism, unity. Because when people are afraid, they stop asking questions. And when people stop asking questions, power moves quietly. The strange details. Now let's slow this down because the cracks are always there. They're just ignored. Have you ever noticed how wars are almost always justified by a single event? A moment, a trigger, a headline. And that moment becomes the emotional fuel for everything that follows. But here's the problem. When you go back and actually study those moments, they're rarely as clean as they were presented. Information changes, details shift, contradictions appear, but by the time that happens, the war is already underway, the machine is already moving, and once that machine starts, it doesn't stop easily. The historical context. Now zoom out. Forget one war. Look at the pattern. Wars don't just happen. They're preceded by rising tension, media amplification, political positioning, economic pressure. Then something happens, and suddenly war becomes necessary. Here's what history quietly shows. Wars, massive economic shifts, new laws, expanded government powers, long-term control systems. And those things don't disappear when the war ends. They stay. They become normal. This is where it gets uncomfortable, because the pattern starts to look less like chaos and more like design. Think about it. War does something very specific. It resets things, it redistributes power, it restructures economies, it justifies control. It also does something else. It unites people under fear. And when people are united under fear, they become easier to guide, easier to direct, easier to control. Now ask yourself this. If war consistently produces these outcomes, is it always accidental? Or is it sometimes useful? What they don't tell you. Here's what rarely gets said out loud. War is one of the most profitable systems on Earth, not just in money, in influence, in control. Entire industries grow because of it. Technologies get introduced through it, policies get passed during it that would never pass in peace. And once those policies exist, they don't go away, they become permanent. But there's something even deeper. War doesn't just reshape nations. It reshapes people. It changes how they think, what they accept, what they tolerate. And once that shift happens, the system doesn't need war the same way anymore because the mindset has already been changed. The bigger picture. Now step back one more level, because this isn't just about governments. This is about systems, cycles, patterns that repeat across time. The players change, the names change, the locations change, but the structure stays the same. Conflict, fear, response, control, over and over again. And if you don't see the pattern, you end up arguing about sides while the structure itself stays untouched. Now let's take this even further, because this isn't just political. There's a spiritual layer to this. The Bible doesn't present the world as random. It presents it as a battlefield, not just physical, but spiritual. Ephesians 6 verse 12, KV, for we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world. Read that again, not against flesh and blood. Meaning the real conflict isn't just nation versus nation. There are forces, systems, structures operating behind what we see. And when you start viewing wars through that lens, everything changes. Because now you're not just asking who's right. You're asking what's really driving this? The real battlefield. Here's the part most people miss. The most important battlefield isn't land. It's not territory. It's not even resources. It's perception. Control how people see the world, and you control what they accept. That's why information matters so much. That's why narratives matter, because whoever shapes the story shapes reality for everyone listening. The question that stays with you. So now we come back to the question, not who won the war, not who was right, but this, what was actually gained and by who? Because if the same systems keep growing stronger after every conflict, then maybe the war was never just about the fight. If this made you stop and think, good, because that's where it starts. Not with blind agreement, but with asking better questions. If you want more content like this, hit subscribe because we're not here for surface level answers. We're here to dig, to question, to uncover what's been buried. This is Rock Solid TV, unfiltered truth, unshakable faith, and we're just getting started.